Aloha and welcome to the Embodied Healing Self podcast with your host, Jen Mons. Each week, join me for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around embodied healing and awakening to your soul's purpose. Thank you for listening in. Aloha and welcome back. I am Jen Mons, host of the Embodied Healing Self podcast. And I am so excited to share my guest with you today, Dr. Julie Dietrich. Julie is a doctor of RoHun Therapy and metaphysical healing, which is a modality of healing the subconscious mind. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that today. So I first met Julie 2 years ago, or a little bit more than 2 years ago, when you first moved to the Northeast Florida area. Mm-hmm. As I was in a space of my own healing. I was in a space of just having attended a workshop that provided space of some pretty deep transformational emotional healing. And in that space, uncovered some of my own energetic gifts that I wasn't fully aware of or bringing attention to at the time, of empathy and intuition. And when I left that workshop, I just kept seeing your face. And I didn't even really fully understand or know the work that you did to help people in their healing journey. But I knew that I was supposed to reach out to you. So I trusted that intuitive moment. And then we did some sessions together. And what unfolded for me, as in every session is different for everybody, but in my personal experience, I was in a really deep space of understanding and healing the trauma around my daughter's birth experience, which was life-threatening for both of us. And coming to you in a space of healing the emotional component and just raising the awareness of it, and then going deeper into healing some subconscious energetic patterns that were showing up. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even aware was possible. So you've been a part of my personal healing journey, and I'm honored to be able to share with the listeners of this show you and the work that you do in this world. So thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm so glad that I was able to help in any way. And thank you so much for having me on here today.
Absolutely. What I love about this show is that I get to share people and pathways to healing the different parts of ourselves. We're a whole self, but we have all these layers. And the more we are willing to do to access these different parts, the more we fully step into our truth of who we are. Absolutely. And that was my experience with you. It was like shedding some more layers and stepping into Absolutely. My truth. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. We all have those layers. Those layers that just we think is us, and it's just not.
Yeah. So when I decided to come up with this podcast, most of my journey has been one of physical healing. And in the last couple of years, the last 3 years, I began to dive deeper into the emotional healing, the energetic healing, and of course, now in a space of spiritual healing. And it's a place, it's a conversation that I really feel is progressive and also ready to be heard.
Sure.
And when we talk about health and well-being, I now know, as many of my listeners are probably aware of, that health and well-being is so much deeper than our physical body. It's even deeper than our emotional awareness, our emotions and our experiences. There's another layer to it where there's an energetic component, there's a subconscious, and even a super consciousness that are all part of our experience, because we are part of a larger integrated network of light energy, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Unconditional
Yes.
love, or divine source, God, whatever the word is. And I think, when we talk about higher self or divine source, we're talking about what other people are calling God. It's the same thing. It's a universal love.
Definitely. Yes. Yes.
And the conversation today is really going to go to that deeper layer. We're going to go to that deeper layer of maybe the part of us that we're not always aware that we are actually connected to.
Yeah.
But so bringing that awareness up so that we can choose to live more in that space. And I know from my experience, the willingness to be vulnerable and heal that part of ourselves is when it becomes a part of our daily life.
Absolutely. You have to be open to it. You have to just let go of the fear of what may happen and open yourself to what good can happen. And that's how you really let it in.
Absolutely. So, Julie, would you be willing to share a little bit about yourself and maybe your childhood and how you got into this work?
Sure. So, about me, well, I'm very science-minded. So, of all the spiritual people and, spiritual healers that you'll talk to, I'm going to be one of the less woo-woo, down-to-earth ones. So, that's always been me, because I do need that scientific side there. So I've always been interested in, of course, quantum physics, astrophysics, all of that. And originally, that was my dream, was to go into astrophysics. But that didn't turn out that way. I had a few roadblocks that were supposed to happen. And I ended up with metaphysics, which turns out the more these scientists are doing the research in quantum mechanics and physics, they're actually proving all of these esoteric just ideas that they would never say that they would believe, that only crazy people believe that. But if you actually look at what they're saying and what they're proving at a quantum level, it is metaphysical, it is spiritual, all the same laws apply. And so that is another thing I'm very, very passionate about. That's something bringing that science together with the spirituality. Ever since I can remember, and even before, I've been a very highly sensitive, intuitive. Of course, when I was very young, I did not know what it was at all, what I was seeing, what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. And I spent most of my childhood in a lot of fear of what I was experiencing. And I knew no one else around me was going through that, or at least they weren't telling me. And if I was expressing some of it, you're just a kid, that's, you're just talking nonsense. It's your imagination, all of that. So that was difficult. Not to mention being able to feel everyone's emotions growing up through school. And it's very, very confusing, because you don't even know what your own emotions are at that point, because you're surrounded by, in puberty, think about all the all the hormones raging, and you're feeling this person's, what's mine? And so I really did not know who I was. which sent me into a very, very deep depression. Probably started from what I can remember, early middle of school, something like that. And it progressively got worse as I went through school. I was put on, of course, medications for that. All that did was just numb me out a bit. It did help in some degrees. I mean, it all has its place. But for me, uh, I just needed to know what was actually going on, why I was feeling this way. And I didn't want to just numb out to what was there.
Mm.
So let's see how I got on this path. um, yeah. Well, okay. So I had, so with the depression and a lot of things, I ended up having a major car accident when I was 20 years old when I was in college, and my car rolled 3 times. They had to pull me out by the jaws of life. And I had shattered my femur, hip, and pelvic bone, as well as lacerating my spleen, and I'm sure many, many concussions and all of that. I don't really remember anything for at least 3 days, and I was in the hospital for about a month for that time, and I was just going in and out of consciousness, having no idea what was going on. Um, Later on, I realized that this was the way of my guides kind of putting me back on the right path, because I just was lost. So I thank you for doing that. I see the benefit in it now,
Mm-hmm.
because I wouldn't be where I am today without all that pain. And thankfully, not too long after my car accident, when I was feeling very, very down, because I couldn't walk for 6 months, and just the recovery was just mentally and emotionally draining. And I was just looking up metaphysical stuff online, and I happened to come across an ad for Delphi University, which at that point they didn't even do ads. So somehow I ended up on their website and uh, found that I could apply to that school. So as soon as I found out that I would go to that school, I pretty much said, "This is it. This is who I'm going to be." And my first week there was the turning point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to make me understand everything that I had been feeling, everything that I went through, everything, and why.
Mm. You found your home.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. I mean, as there's so much I could say about what you just shared, and thank you for sharing that. I
Hmm.
mean, we could really, and I will do a podcast on intuitive parenting alone.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
As the mother of highly sensitive children, and now knowing and seeing it in myself, and looking back through my journey as a parent and seeking answers from a system that traditionally wasn't fitting our needs. I mean, really looking outside of myself for the answers was when we were in the biggest health crisis. And now I understand that the physical experiences that we were having were also because of the energetic sensitivities that were being felt, but there was no way to communicate that.
Of
And
course.
and I share this just with the listeners out there, because now, knowing what I know as a parent of children in today's world, I'm able to see it outside of my own family. And working in the work that I do, I work with families of usually either women or families that have they are sensitive to foods and chemicals and usually that's an indicator of being sensitive energetically and possibly empathic as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I share that just for the listeners as maybe just a little invitation to be aware or to listen to your children and what they're saying. And
To make a big difference.
yeah, and only, and this is a conversation for another day, but because sharing your story, I think as a parent, what we can do is if we lean in and listen and allow the children to be the teachers, maybe we can help them navigate this so that they do feel loved and accepted, and they don't suffer depression or disconnection or get disconnected by, through social media and TV and things like that. Because what I now know and what I now see is that it's happening a lot more to
Mm-hmm.
these children. And when they're very young, they are speaking, they are sharing that with us. And it is just because they live in the place of unconditional love and acceptance of who they are. It is nothing,
Mm-hmm.
quote, special or extraordinary. It is part of who we are. We're just
Absolutely.
leaning into it. So
Yes.
what I love about your story is that, gratitude. We are thankful for all of the experience that have brought us to this moment today. So
Mm-hmm.
your story, like my story, although it doesn't identify us, what we have learned through the process is that now we're able to step into a world where we can have compassion and empathy for people who are in their own struggle because we've
Definitely.
been there in our own way. And
Mm-hmm.
because we know that, we have a deeper sense of being able to heal
Mm-hmm.
what it is and to see it and witness it and to hold space for it.
Yeah, we understand exactly what it's like to be there. I mean, everyone's different, but having that understanding, I mean, even to a client or that can be huge just to have someone understand that too, because most people they feel so isolated when they're in, I mean, depression or anxiety or all of that. They feel so isolated. So for just having someone understand that is so huge.
Absolutely. And from my experience with you, this level of understanding is different than like therapy where we're talking about it. It's actually
Mhm.
feeling and experiencing it. So, can you talk a little bit about your RoHun therapy? One of the things that you said that I loved, and I'm going to quote this from you, is that your
Mhm.
passion is to open yourself up to anyone who is guided to you to hold compassionate, universal, loving space for them. In everything that I do, and this is a quote from Dr. Julie herself, the client is the healer and I am the guide. I mean, that right there is like, okay, so I'm covered in goosebumps. That is like the space of pure unconditional love. When we get to the point where we know, like, we're not the healers, we're actually just messengers of God or divine source. Like
Mhm.
anybody who's willing and who wants this, like we just hold the space. So can you share with our listeners who are not familiar with your method of RoHun therapy, what you can share the science if you want or what, but just kind of bring us into your world of what that looks
Okay.
like.
All right. Well, so Ron is it's very, very abstract, especially because we're working in the subconscious. So it's not very easy to put into words. And if you ask anyone who's gone through it and they try to explain it to their spouses or something after they've had a session, they try to and they can't. It's so internal and it's so powerful that it's almost that words can't do it justice. Um, but I'll tell you a little bit of what it's like for me and what my role in it is. First, I'll relax them, of course, just have them in a relaxed state. It's not as deep as hypnosis. It's not going to take you, you'll remember everything. I mean, the more relaxed you are, then there'll be bits and pieces you may not remember. But then I do kind of an induction. It's like a guided meditation where we actually lift you up through the higher realms and have you connect with wisdom, love, harmony, bringing all of that into you, feeling your strength building. And then we go back to source, to God, to where we all began, where we're all one, and just feel that home, feel that love. And you just are radiating with it. And that allows you to get into the space, or allows a client to get into the space to be able to come back down to their body. And then we start my first RoHun session, we go all the way back to the womb. I'll regress you immediately back to the womb. Being able to look at it from this compassionate, universal love view, and view possibly very traumatic, very difficult things that you don't want to have to go, have to feel. It allows the healing actually to take place. Because if you get drawn into it, like sometimes this happens in like hypnotherapy, you can get really drawn back into that emotion. In RoHun, you are able to stay in that compassionate viewpoint where you really see yourself as that divine being, and you're just looking at that situation saying, wow, that happened. I feel so much compassion for myself and what went on there. But that's not who I am. And I can see how that was a misperception on both sides. There's forgiveness on both sides. And there's a lot of inner child healing here, because the inner child really rules us. So any experiences that we've had, anything even as small as, this happens from maybe a 3-year-old looks at their mother and they put their arms out, because they want to hug, and their mom's busy doing something. They think, oh, I'm unlovable. There's something wrong with me. And of course, to somebody thinking back on that, that doesn't seem that traumatic, but it stays there. That child is held in your subconscious, and it is playing those thoughts over and over and over again. I'm unlovable. I don't deserve to be here. And that child in there really is the creator of your life. We don't even realize it's there, but it's pulling experiences towards you that will validate what it believes.
Yes, that is so true. Like, maybe you could repeat that again.
Sure. So that inner child is the creator of your life. Mm-hmm. And it will pull experiences to you that will validate those faulty feelings, faulty thoughts,
beliefs, limiting beliefs,
limiting beliefs, that it will bring them to you to validate those thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we go through these patterns over and over and over again. And we wonder why we can't get out of it. And it's held there just out of view in the subconscious. And it really rules us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this, so my journey was one of first physical healing through nutrition and herbs, and then becoming a health coach. And I found that my personal journey has always been kind of in alignment with my coaching practice. Like my clients are like my healers. They're, it's a co-creation of an experience. They're my teachers. Mm-hmm. And one of the patterns that I kept recognizing was this belief in healing the physical body through nutrition and herbs and energy work and acupuncture, which we can do. But then recognizing in women and both myself that you can heal the body with food. But there was this part of like these limiting beliefs or these patterns that would show up in just the way that we choose to nourish ourselves. Because nourishment is a basic form of survival and self-love. So it's really interesting. Like, to teach nutrition or, fitness nutrition or things like that, that works for some people, but to really heal and to address what it is that to get the results that you want, there's a deeper layer, a deeper level of like, okay, so I've given you the tools for what you need to eat healthy for your body type, create the healthy lifestyle habits, know your worthiness. Maybe we're there, but then there's a pattern that repeats. So what is the underlying layer of that? And as you said,
Mhm.
often what I see are these limiting beliefs of, am I lovable? Am I worthy? Am I safe? And like you said, I love that you said, like, and nobody did anything wrong sometimes. Like the
No.
situation, for whatever reason, in that moment in time as a child, we created a belief that felt good in that moment.
Mhm.
And it continues to come back for us.
Yeah,
And it's not that in some situations there is really deep trauma that creates the belief,
absolutely.
and sometimes there's not. And what I see in the work I do is that sometimes people are looking for maybe something really difficult or traumatic that did happen when, like you said, just, I mean, even, a parent not being available because they're at work all the time, or something
Sure.
could create a belief
Mhm.
like, I'm not as lovable as that job,
Sure. Yeah.
um and I mean, in saying this, we all have this.
We
Like,
too.
we all have this on some level.
Yes.
We all
Yes.
have an inner child that wants to be nurtured and loved.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a key.
Yeah. And I think knowing this can give us permission to be willing to explore it. It's like
Yeah.
there doesn't have to be an expectation or a judgment. When you're in a space of unconditional love, there's no judgment, because judgment makes one person right and one person wrong. And we're not
Mhm.
saying that experience was wrong. It was there to serve
Mm.
us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. That's so important to have a complete understanding of the situation. You see the other person's point of view. You see what your point of view was at the time and why you thought that way, why they were doing that. Everyone's going through their own stuff. They're ruled from their own inner child. That's
Absolutely.
going on from that way. It's nothing that you did necessarily. But we all play a role in each other's lives to stir us up enough to bring us to the point where
Teach
we
us.
are open to healing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I was going to say push your buttons. That was like, but it's really this, it's an opportunity to learn. It's an
Yes.
opportunity. One of the personal practices that I am practicing is when I find myself in a space of being judged or judging, because we're all human, and even though I'm aware of it and I work not to, it happens.
Of course.
I consciously choose to, because of the work that you do and that I've done, I consciously choose to take myself to imagine being with that person as their child, their inner child, right? And because it
Mhm.
immediately, I think, brings us to that space of compassion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is a great method for doing that
Yeah.
because that is really who you're speaking to. And
Right.
we're not going to blame, a child for, you know, touching a hot stove. They didn't know any better. That
Right.
child doesn't know any better. So we can't stop, or we need to stop blaming these people for doing these things that they really honestly did not know any better.
And it raises our level of consciousness, because when we're in that space, we're in victim consciousness, right? And then we're
Yes,
kind of,
correct.
I mean, I don't even know if that's a thing. I just said that, but it's like
It
we're in a,
is.
right? Well, I know from my own experience, like in that space, I felt like I was being sucked, like just,
Hmm.
this dark cloud, and like nobody understands me and nobody could
Hmm.
ever help me, and it's everybody else's fault and I'm being punished. And I mean, I lived in that space 10 years ago as a parent with a very difficult situation for what I was, I was in survival mode. And then it comes back when there's other moments of grief or loss, and we're human. Of course that helps. But I think what we can take away from this is the awareness that that experience does not completely define us, and we can access that forgiveness and compassion.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
once you do that, you stop the cycle. You stop it from coming back to you and playing out again and again and again. And you make your life better, and without even knowing it, you're making their life better. It's energetically radiating out to them.
Like a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, another method that I've used specifically for family, for those of you in my family that are listening, I love you. One of the methods that I use is I do a meditation with their higher self or their inner child. So I bring myself into the space of, in other words, the conversation for me, the healing has happened without having the physical conversation even. And even if a loved one has passed away, it's another way that you can have that healing conversation.
Definitely. Definitely. They do not have to be physically there for you to reach them. You're reaching their soul, which is so much bigger than their physical body. You're actually touching them on a much deeper level. You're just bypassing the physical, which could just cause more problems. Eventually, once that forgiveness has happened, then you can maybe reach out physically so that you can come from that heart space and, make things right in the physical. But doing it, in a meditation or just energetically, you are shifting things in that quantum level. It just radiates out.
Yeah. So, Julie, why do you love this work?
I love this work because I love my clients. I love my clients, and I am repeatedly blown away at their experiences. I mean, people who come in who are just like, I don't know if this is going to work and stuff like that. I'm like, that's fine. I'm not here to make you believe anything. That's good. But by the end of, because usually I do 3-hour sessions in a week. That's how I usually start. By the end of that week, you can tell a complete difference in that person. Everyone around them sees the difference. They feel free. They feel at peace. They are not anxious. It's whatever they need to have worked on. I mean, it can be bigger than that. It can be smaller than that. But that, just seeing the profound just transformation that happens in such a short period of time by just adjusting these things in the subconscious and healing it changes their life completely. And I mean, I know that's a high claim, but I see it, and it's I mean, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it, because it's profound, and they're finally free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that are listening in that are new to this idea that there's even a layer to them that even needs to be healed, what would you say to maybe just invite them to, in their own space, just sort of like start checking in or becoming aware of, to see if this is something that could be beneficial for them?
Sure. I mean, some work that you could do on your own that would be really easy is when, say, you have a repetitive irritation or anger that keeps coming up in your life. after that day is done, you can just kind of sit back and just close your eyes, and I want just really feel that feeling, that anger, that irritation, and then just let yourself start to move back in time to wherever your mind, your subconscious takes you, to the first time you experienced that specific type of frustration, irritation, anger, and just see what's there. See what experience is being played out there. And if you can yourself, I mean, we all can do this ourselves. It's great to have a guide. You can go in there and just bring healing to it, send love to the situation, understanding, making sure that you let go of the misunderstandings, the hurt, the pain that was caused. And that's something we can all do. And that is a little snippet of what would happen in a session. But even doing that for yourself for these repetitive emotions, that would be huge, to even just start doing that as a practice on your own.
Yeah, one of the things that you said that I loved was what I got from it is it's not the emotion itself that causes us pain, but our resistance to the emotion or the experience. So really leaning in and stepping into that space of unconditional love and acceptance and forgiveness really helps energetically it to dissipate. And
exactly.
So this process that you said is something that it sometimes in session comes up for me and clients, and I use a somatic inquiry process or breath work. And so if I'm a listener and I'm doing this on my own, when do I know, other than if I'm really trusting my intuition, as I did, right? Like I saw your face, I knew I had to come. How do I know to trust that I might need a little extra help? Because you're being humble in your share. And like, what I really want you to say is like, there is, in my experiences, when I came to you, there was a level of physical healing that occurred in my body. I mean, there was like, there was all kinds of stuff. There was like a cord pain in my solar plexus, and I know and I now know what it was, but like, the process of you are doing things in that session that are helping to release some of this. And so would you be willing to share just a little bit more about that, so that, just go there, just share kind of like some of the things that you're doing in the process.
Well, okay. Yeah. So all of these cords, these attachments, especially when there's things that are unforgiven, especially we hold there's psychic cords between all of these people that you feel have hurt you or you've hurt them. And that's all pulling your energy out of you. And it attaches, depending on what type of experience it was, it'll attach to different parts of the body. Usually aligned with chakras. It could be other things, certain organs as well, that it will eventually drain the life force out of that. So what we are doing is we're going in and understanding because there's an agreement there in that cord that you're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. So we're deciding to void that contract. And when we're doing that, we're cutting that cord so that you can take your energy back, they can take their energy back, and you can be free of them, and you can be free to be yourself. You brought up a good point, because there is a lot of physical changes that happen with my clients, that because the body radiates what we don't deal with in the subconscious. So a lot of these physical aches, pains, things that we're going through actually stem from the subconscious, and it is the these inner children or these experiences that are screaming out to you saying, I need to be healed. There's something wrong here. There's dis-ease going on here. And that is so important in the work because people can have, back pain for years. And I've had people come in, and after that week, they're like, why don't I have it anymore? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, it was,
Yeah.
what did you release? What did you, what do you think was holding you back there? What made you feel unstable, that you feel like you couldn't hold yourself up?
Yeah. And, I'll just share, because I love to come back to, as a client of you, just to share my experience was when we talk about cord, we're talking about like an energetic cord between people. It's like
Sure.
like your, it's like your attachment to the people in your life. And there's some very strong ones between parents and children. And my oldest daughter and I had a very profound, for lifetime. Like, and, during her birth, I had liver failure, and there are a lot of emotions associated with liver, of anger, frustration, resentment. And it was, and then even eating healthy, like I would feel dis-ease and discomfort, but I would go to get tests done and everything was fine, but in my liver and gallbladder. And one of the results that I had in what felt to me was like a dissipation of this, kind of toxic energy, is sort of in how my mind creates the picture, was the releasing of the physical trauma on a cellular level that happened in that area, because it was a real thing that happened. But in that process, I never brought awareness to the bigger picture. I never brought awareness to how I felt. I never brought awareness to the grief or the emotions, or even bigger, to the energetic spiritual component of it, which, and the thing for me is, like, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been talking about this at all. But my life experiences showed me this, and I choose not to keep it to myself, because it was a part of my healing process. And so I have this belief now, because I've witnessed it and experienced it in myself, that our healing, and I'm talking, when we say dis-ease, we talk about discomfort, pain, dis-ease, like autoimmunity. I mean, we can go all the way to the layers of cancer. I'm not a doctor, but there's many layers to that. And
absolutely.
So this is just kind of in sharing this, it's an invitation to consider, if you notice chronic, because to make it tangible for the listeners, right? Because they maybe we're just learning to grasp this, but what we do know is that our physical body can be uncomfortable. We do know that sometimes if we're choosing not to medicate all the time,
right?
But our physical body speaks to us, and we can listen, because that's like, we can lean in and listen. We can notice in a relationship or connection with a person that every time we're around this person, my shoulder hurts, or, those are things that
that happens. Up. Yeah.
And I've heard people tell me, that through the energy working in my own experience, I mean, what I want to share with the listeners is, this is a thing, like, this is a pathway to healing that dis-ease or comfort. Now, I'm not saying it's a cure. We're not saying that it's going to completely, it may or may not, it's your experience, but
everyone's different. Yes,
absolutely. That it's available. And if other things are not working, and maybe if you lean into the body a little bit, the dis-ease or discomfort, maybe there's an opportunity for a deeper layer. And I just want to share quickly that what I also learned is that it's not even always just about this moment in this experience. Like, in my experience, it was so much deeper than just that birth experience. Even it was like I mean, it, like you said, it had to do with my own birth experience. And then, many lives of energetic DNA. I mean,
Yeah.
and, that's a conversation that we could just go a whole nother
Yeah.
day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but I love what you said, and that the healing itself is so, it's not just about us. So healing, from in my experience and the work that you do, is as you did for yourself, because now you are doing this for other people,
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
actually, it's selfless, because we show up, and my relationships with my loved ones have healed, and even not just physically but energetically. It's when we're stepping into healing ourselves, like we are doing it for so much more than just ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And being a mother and working with mothers, and I know of a couple of my favorite people that have come to you that are mothers. Sometimes we forget that, right? We forget that
Yes.
we're taking care of everybody else, or even as women in general, or even as
Mm-hmm.
men, families. And so I think the message I want to say right now is, when you do this, when you decide to do this, it's not just about you and your experience. It's benefits everybody.
Oh yes. It
Yeah.
radiates out, and it can affect them in ways you'd never imagine. It'll affect you more, and you'll notice that, but it, especially children and direct family lines, that it really, really affects the ancestral DNA. And it
Yeah.
can really reform it, restructure it back
Yeah.
to the health it used to be, the way it was supposed to be. Yeah.
Yep. And in fact, the book I've been writing for 3 years is, it's on that topic. And when I started writing it, I hadn't experienced everything I had now, but it's really just about breaking those patterns through conscious parenting, like
Mm-hmm.
just the awareness of it, and the willingness to realize that it's not just about my identity and role as a parent. Even like there's so many layers to it, and even in both directions, really,
Oh,
energetically.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Forward and backward, and then you can go even bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a few more minutes left, Julie, and I want to share with people that another one of the things that I love that you shared, because I asked the question to bring us together, for both of our listeners, the value of the work that we are doing in the world. And one of the things that you said that I loved is, and I quote you, "We are giving people their power to love themselves and feel worthy enough to invest in their well-being. The only way to truly change the world is to help each other person one by one remember that they are in charge and creators of their lives." I like to say the authors of their life story. And they can love themselves enough to choose to be the way they want to be in the world. And I think that's when I think of the word empowerment, to the outside world, it seems very different in what I used to think that it was. And giving people their power back is actually coming within, right?
Absolutely.
Coming home to
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah.
And we do that when we let go of the stories and the trauma and the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say let go, but we embrace it, because it is a part of
Yeah.
us.
It's still there. It's just not, we don't react the same way to similar situations. It doesn't have the control factor that it had before. It is something that has
And we're
helped us
not
grow.
denying it. And we're also
True.
not denying it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's
Exactly.
the healthy way is to be with it and to embrace it and to see it from a place of unconditional love, which is the space that
Absolutely.
you're holding.
Yes. 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 And then you're able to see everything crystal clear. And at that point, I mean, people end up, they, they go back to experiences that they forgot, or they never would have even thought that this caused any issues, or that it was affecting them at all. And then they're like, oh, wow. Oh, this makes so much sense now. I see how this connects here, here, here. But in that space, you are able to see the bigger picture, which allows you to connect all of those things. And it just happens automatically because you're in that space of who you really are. And you know you're worthy of being healthy, of having love, of being loved, of just having the life you deserve. And we are limited only by that which we limit ourselves.
Yeah. And what a gift to be able to
Mm-hmm.
step into owning that space of unconditional love and living in that space. So I have one more question for you,
Of
because
course.
I didn't ask it in the beginning. You are passionate about this work because, in your words, this specific method that you've chosen to get your PhD in of RoHun Therapy, become a doctor of RoHun Therapy. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that this saved you.
Yes.
Would you be willing to share that moment? Just give us a little insight to you in that moment where you were saved by this and decided that this is how you were going to help people to heal.
Okay, well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily just one moment. I mean, I was at Delphi, and I started on the metaphysical healing side. I was actually a little too scared to do some of the Rohan because that's, doing deep work. Um, but then I happened to get a little glimpse into it, and I realized how much was there. And I started on the Rohan path. Just a little background on me. I mentioned that I had a deep depression, but I was frequently suicidal attempts. I was just very, very unhappy. Did not want to be here. Wanted to escape a lot. And Rohan allowed me to go back and realize what I was trying to escape from. And yeah, and it made so much sense. I didn't want to escape anymore. There's nothing to escape. We're here to enjoy. It doesn't have to be painful. Sure, life's going to come and happen, but the way, once we take back that control of our lives and of ourselves, we choose how to react to that or how to respond to something happening. And you choose how bad it can get. And I now, I mean, it, I no longer think about that at all, think about suicide or even escaping. It's not even in the realm. I remember when I graduated with the doctorate, I noticed, because I did a personality test uh, when I first went to Delphi and then right when I was graduating, and I saw the differences in the personality test, and I was trying to think, what happened there? What changed it? And I was like, the depression's gone. It's gone. How, wow, that's
And not your
huge.
medication.
No, no,
Right.
right. It would just, it, yeah, it, I mean, it was the first time I actually realized it was gone, because I'd been doing this work, but it dawned on me, and I was just blown away that, and actually that I've seen that in my clients too. It's, obviously I'm not claiming anything,
Right.
but it's possible. That's what people need to know. There is hope. You don't need to live like this. You don't need to be living in pain or numbness, just walking through life, uh, not
You
wanting to
don't
feel
have to
any.
suffer. We don't
No.
have to suffer because, and like you said, and this is just such a great message to really close this up on. And this really, because there's a whole nother conversation on religion and spirituality. And if we want to just go there, like Christ consciousness is a place of compassion, unconditional love, and also living in joy. Like there is that choice that we forget because that's not what we learned. But that, somehow our conscious mind somehow, like we, because of our limiting beliefs, we allow the suffering to be the space where we grow the most.
Of course. Well, we also have well, right. There's people who see that. I mean, that's even a martyr type thing too, and that can even come from feelings of unworthiness, thinking that they deserve the suffering, which that all goes back, subconscious as well.
Yeah. That was something that I had to work through myself, and the wounded healer type of thing.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, there's just so many layers to this, but I love that you brought it around to, first of all, the courage to share your own experience. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
The more that we as teachers and healers and practitioners can show up in that space of vulnerability and share with people that we are imperfectly perfect. Like we have had our, dark night of the soul. We have had our ego deaths. We have had our dis-ease, and we've been like, we know it's a part of the experience. And we also we made choices on how are we going to show up when this is happening? What are we going to do with this? And we all have that choice. And coming back full circle to really what we want to provide listeners with today is just that message of hope that everything is possible. And I know you and I believe that at the depths of our hearts. Like we stand in that truth. Like we really believe that everything is possible. You can heal relationships, your body, and love and trauma. And, if you're willing to do that. And this is another pathway to accessing that, to healing and to living in a person's truth.
Very powerful one.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so
sharing
much.
the time with me. We had a few little technological glitches in the beginning, but it all worked out. So I really appreciate that you spent the extra time with me. And for our listeners that want to know more, would you be willing to share where they can find you, and also where they can find out some more information about RoHun Therapy in case they're not local to this area, maybe another practitioner?
Well, okay, for RoHun, for anyone who who isn't around Jacksonville area, you can go to either call or go to Delphi University's website. You can just type in Delphi, it's DELFI, or PHI, sorry, web or university. Wow. And just go to their website, and they have a list of RoHun practitioners by state. So you can find one that's near you. So that's great for anyone who is further away. Anyone who is closer, they can either email me directly at drjuliedietrich@gmail.com. Or you can currently I'm working at Mind, Body, and Beyond Center in Jacksonville. So you can go to their website, mindbodyandbeyondcenter.com. And there's a list of bunch of stuff about RoHun, about my services, and how to contact me. I usually start with a consultation just to make sure that people are ready for its deep work. So I'm also on Facebook, just Julie Lane Dietrich, and Instagram. It's JLAYNED7. And you can contact me on any of those platforms, and I would be very happy to help you in any way that you would need, or any way that I can.
I do have just one other question. I'm gonna put the links in the show notes with the spelling and everything in case people are looking for you. Do
Mhm.
you work with people that are not local? Can you do the work like quantum healing through distance or?
I have just recently started that, actually. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I am just working on setting that up. It's, of course, it takes a little bit of time, but yes, because in the work that I'm doing, I don't necessarily need to be in the same room with them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm opening up to that, and I would love to be able to branch it out much further. And I think that yeah, if anyone would like to contact me, I would do Skype sessions or anything like that, and we can do a RoHun session through that.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you just opened that up. Yeah, and I know that like space and time only we created
Right,
measurements, right? Like so I see the bigger picture, and that's why I asked because um
right.
I've done some distance quantum touch energy healing sessions as well before in the
Mhm.
past. And had a lot of success with those. So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It again, it's just a limiting thought, the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julie, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing this work that you're so passionate about and for showing up and, just really honor your journey and all that it took for you to be in this moment to share the space with me and to commit to holding the space for others so that they can heal and step into their highest intention and their truth. And I just feel so much gratitude for, I know, like, I just have a sense of knowing like what you've been to and how big your heart is to be in this space to help people. I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, my honor being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day. For all of our listeners, thank you for joining in, and you can take a look at the show notes for all of the links and more information. Thanks for joining and listening, and have a wonderful day. Aloha. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining me today and being a part of this community. I know there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and I am deeply honored that you chose to listen in and be present with me today. I love and cherish and appreciate you, and I want to invite you to join our tribe and Facebook group under jenmons.com/connect. I would also love to gift you your guide to discovering and overcoming the self-limiting beliefs standing in the way of you living in optimal health, more energy, fulfillment, and self-confidence to create an embodied, healthy, whole you. You can find this at jenmons.com/tribe. I also have one small request to help spread the love. In order for this podcast to show up in the feed of social media platforms of other like-minded people, we need reviews. So please head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review. You will also find other inspiring episodes on that page. So I personally read these reviews weekly and would love to give you a shout out and share your kind words with our listeners. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Jen Mons or The Holistic Coach with the W Holistic and Jen Mons, JenMons.com. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Aloha.